Ripple effects.
Episode 25. Today we are talking about sonic integrity and how to sound powerful without over-polishing your podcast.
Great topic for today.
Yeah. And we want to start with this preface, which is the more you edit your voice, the less powerful it can become. And this episode has unfolded because Lawrence is going to be speaking at a community event inside the Feminist Podcasters Collective. It is a membership that we are a part of. We'll link all about it in the show notes, but it's a great community, and he's going to be speaking on this topic. So we wanted to share with y'all about sonic integrity.
I'm excited for the speaking engagement and for this podcast today because contrary to popular belief as an editor, editing out the ums and the long pauses and breaks are a part of the job and the profession, but sometimes it can be overdone, which takes away from the message. So these are just some points, some tips, and a little bit of my experience to share to help build your sonic integrity.
Yeah. And women's voices and people of color's voices have been catalysts for change for a long time. And when you use your voice in the right way, with the right pauses and with the right words, it really can make a difference. And so this is also what this is about.
Totally. We're hardwired for storytelling. It dates back to when we were cavemen hunting and gathering. We use storytelling not only to pass on knowledge and information, but to communicate.
So we'll start with just the beginner's mindset of editing your podcast. And if you are editing your own podcast, you probably feel the urge or need to cut all of the ums, all of the silences, all of the chit-chat out. And especially with the tools like Riverside and Descript, it makes it really easy to clip everything out. But why should someone not do that?
That's a great question. I love, especially when you're beginning, being mindful of all the ums. It's nothing wrong with it starting out. These are some things that we'll talk about today that are a bit more intermediate. But at the beginning, totally be mindful of all the ums, all the likes, and all the pauses, because as you edit, and if you're doing it on your own, you'll be able to notice it when you edit, and then when you speak in day-to-day life, and when you record podcasts. So it will definitely, that awareness will definitely help you communicate more effectively without filler words. So that's a preface. Ums and likes are just a part of speech. Every language has filler words. So when you're digesting a podcast, it does flow naturally when you have some of those conversational fillers. When you are thinking of something, especially right after a question, that's a great place, just for a quick tip, that's a great place to leave a She asked me a question, I can go, and then start talking about the question. And if there's something in there, a few more you can take it out. Places to always take out if someone is, or yourself, if you're introducing yourself, your occupation and what your business does, every single filler word should be taken out, because that is a very professional and concise, whether it's a pitch or your brand statement, that should be clean. But when you're having a conversation and someone asks you a question, or if you're doing a list, say you're doing a list of 3, like this black, we got white, and yellow. I tend to leave those in as well because it makes it feel like they're thinking of that third point. These are just some examples to give you a feel for the natural flow of some filler words.
Those are really good examples. And I think just to reiterate and repeat what you said. So when someone's introducing themselves, take out those filler words
Always.
so that they can come across as confident and authority, know what they're talking about.
Definitely.
If they are listing things out, maybe keep in a filler word
Yes.
because it's natural.
Yes. If it's like 3 things they're listing out, there shouldn't be a filler word in between each one. But if there's one filler word, they're saying, and then they state something, it's very tasteful.
Okay. And what was the other one?
Right after you ask a question. Okay. So
Remove the filler word.
it can be a filler word unless it's between every question. Mm-hmm. But those are some of the natural spaces where we say these filler words.
Yeah. I really like those examples and that you were really specific in times to remove and times to keep it in. And I think especially with AI, and we talk about AI and automation a lot, I think that more and more it's going to be important to keep those filler words in so that people know and feel the resonance of the human imperfections. How about when to know if you should keep a silence or a breath in? What about that?
I tend to lean towards leaving most breaths in unless they're too loud and distracting. Most breaths are natural and we're humans, so
You have to breathe.
we have to breathe. That's something I've learned from audio engineering music. Breathing makes it feel very natural. So that translates over to podcast.
Yeah.
I just left the pause in to make my next point. That's something that I love to keep in when I'm editing to help draw the listener in. Sometimes that pause is too long, so I may snip out a bit. Mm-hmm. Your question was to when to know when to leave breaths and fillers, or breaths in space. Mm-hmm. So breathing, I think, is very natural and should be left in. That's my opinion. I also think space is very, very effective when it comes to building an authoritative voice as well. Mm-hmm. So don't be shy of spaces. Don't try to cut every single space, but also be mindful of the length of your podcast. Ours are 10 to 15 minutes. So sometimes when there's space in our podcast, it's way more powerful because it's a shorter podcast. Mm-hmm. But be mindful if you got an hour and a half podcast, maybe cutting out some of the space will just reduce that runtime. And that's some of the things I think about when it comes to the space.
That's good. I think space is also important to, like you said, to really pull the listener in and hit a point home and make it punchy. So that's good. And I'm thinking of, in terms of, a lot of women like to, especially if they have guests on their episodes, have a little chit chat, a little catch up, or just, banter that doesn't necessarily always tie into the exact topic that they're talking about. How would you decide when to cut some of that out or when to keep it in? Because, for example, I'm thinking of one of our clients, the Weight Inclusive Innovators, like their back and forth talk really shows you a lot of their personality and their relationship. And I enjoy hearing some of that. So how do you decide what and when to cut that out? And we can end on that.
Shout out to Weight Inclusive. Yeah. Love working with them, love editing their podcast. and love hearing their back and forth because that really makes their podcast. And I feel if your podcast is built around that and your audience expects that, then lean into it totally. I also think that it's very beneficial to have that banter, especially if you have nerves or your guest has nerves, so that you can get into a flow of a conversation and going back and forth and listening and responding. Sometimes that banter is very useful to calm the nerves and get you in a state of openness for the podcast. And you can make a mental note, or if you have an editing team or you're the editing team, you could decide on your own what you want to keep in, what's relevant to the topic of the day. And yeah, you use your own discretion, whether it's knowing what your audience expects and knowing what the topic entails. I stand behind having some banter to have your nerves settled as well. And one thing I did want to touch on is a few tips. If you do have guests who have nerves, or if they're new to doing a podcast, especially remote, having that banter is a great piece of advice. Telling them to come with headphones or a mic that's connected to the headphones. They don't have to have the whole podcast set up, but asking them to be in a quiet room. We have some construction today, maybe avoiding construction noises. Having a room with things on the wall so it can absorb the noise. These are just some very beginner-friendly tips if you are doing remote podcasting that you can just prep your guest, and you can prep them with the questions and things like that, but have them come ready to give you the most high quality audio that they can. And
That's great. I think those are all great points to really shape someone's message and hold the essence of their voice.
yes,
Because that's really the point.
totally. And I love representing women and people of color and underrepresented communities because we all have a voice. Yes. We all are an instrument in this universal symphony, and this is what we amplify.
Yep. So hopefully this was helpful for you. And if you are interested in checking out more about the Feminist Podcasters Collective, we will put more about that in the show notes. And if you need an intuitive podcast editor, we would love to be your team.
Waves don't die.
Bye.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ripple FX podcast. If you want more about connection, social media, podcasting, and life abroad, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Wave Enterprise Co.
I'm Lawrence.
And I'm Gina.
And we help female-owned wellness brands with podcasts and social media.
And remember, waves don't die.
Peace.